Hello, everyone. It's Mark's Day here. Welcome to Mark's Day's Creative Differences, a monthly live stream and podcast where I talk to writer friends about the little things that make a big difference to their craft and careers, and the hope that we can give readers some insight to the creative process and writers and other creative folk some practical advice that they can actually use. I'm Mark's Day, author, screenwriter, and podcaster. And if you're joining us live, feel free to ask us questions in the comments and take part in the conversation. A big thank you as always to Dominic Curry for his jingle. Now today we've got what I'm calling the mid-list blues. Let's just play that again, shall we? Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. Right, so my special guest today writes gripping thrillers that delve into the darkest corners of family, psychology, and forensic investigation. Her books explore secrets, lies, and the dangerous choices people make when pushed to the edge. And as a child, she crafted stories using cutouts from her mum's Littlewoods catalogues. She also runs one of the best writers group on Facebook and is a brilliant advocate for authors. It's only Tracy Buchanan. Hello, Tracy. Welcome to
Hi,
the podcast. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. Yeah, I'm really good. Just got back from Gran Canaria. So yeah, I'm feeling, well, not just a few days ago. So yeah, getting back into it.
Holiday that my wife and I sort of took together before we were married. So, oh my God. But it's very nice. The sand dunes, very evocative. Are you inspired by the landscape out there?
I am actually, yeah. A new idea started coming to me. So yeah, watch this space. I think, yeah, I did definitely come up with a little idea. So I've been talking to my agent about it. So yeah.
Excellent. That makes the holiday tax deductible, I believe. Is that? I mean, well,
Do
I'm
you
not an
know what?
accountant, but yeah, it might. Yeah.
I didn't think of that. Yeah. But the whole thing, the cocktails, because I think that's obviously part of the inspiration. Yeah, got to be
Absolutely,
done.
absolutely, definitely. Well, look, let's start with the really important thing, which is the Littlewoods catalogues. I'm going to talk about what cutting up the Littlewoods cat was. What was going through her mind then?
Yeah, my mum loved her Littlewood catalogues. I was that little girl who was just looking for character inspiration. Just cutting out those character things and putting them in little scrapbooks and deciding what sort of characters I would put into my novels. So yeah, it was that's always what I wanted to do.
So when did you first start writing? You were very young when you first started writing, is that right? Or
Yeah, I think I always wanted to be a writer. I always carried around a little notepad and always coming up with stories and telling stories to people. So yeah, it was just something that's always been everyone I know, all my family always said that's what I wanted to do, and just
right,
loved reading, obsessively reading. But just loved and quite always enjoyed the dark stuff. My daughter's like
right.
that now. So yeah, it's always been the slightly darker, like vampires and death. Little 6-year-old sitting there thinking about vampires and death as you do. What the hell?
Yeah, no, it's perfectly healthy, isn't it, Em? Yeah, it
Yep.
describes our childhoods, definitely. And what sort of set you on the path to writing? Was there an encouraging teacher? Was there someone who gave you inspiration or showed you the way?
I think I would definitely say my mum. She's sadly not here anymore, but yeah, she was an avid reader, and all I saw was her reading all the time. So I think really being introduced to that world of books and seeing how important reading is and how exciting it is really inspired me. So really, I always say it's my mum. She was just like she gave me my love of words. There's no doubt about it, and had some great teachers as well. But yeah, it's always been my mum. And even though she's not here, I kind of still always think about her when I'm writing and think about what she would think about what I'm writing.
Was she around to see you get published?
Yes, yeah, she was. So she passed away sadly in 2021. So
Right.
during COVID, she was diagnosed and stuff. So yeah, it was great. She came, I was first published 10 years ago. She was the first person I called when I got my deal with HarperCollins, and she came with me to Waterstones, and did all the whole thing. I used to drag her around to lots of things like photo shoots. I did a photo shoot once. And yeah, she's been there. So I'm so delighted and pleased and feel so blessed that she got to see that. So that's really great. And I told her about this series that I've just had published, the Vanessa Marwood series. just before she passed away, and she loved the sound of it. So yeah, no, it's great. It's brilliant. I'm so lucky that she got to see all that.
That's fantastic. The new book, Moth to the Flames, which I believe is the third Dr. Vanessa Marwood thriller. Now, Dr. Marwood is a forensic entomologist. Now, as if crime thrillers weren't scary enough, you have to go and add creepy crawlies. So tell us about Dr. Vanessa Marwood and the new book and how it all fits in.
Yeah, so well, exactly. I love a bit of death, love a bit of darkness, and I also love insects and lots of different creatures. You know, I've got like hedgehog places in my front garden and foxes everywhere, so it's a really big thing for me as well. So I thought, you know what? Let's combine a bit of death and darkness with insects. Why not? And I was trying to come up with an idea, and then I started like Googling insects and sort of really started reading up on forensic entomology, which is the focus of, you know, it's where a crime occurs and you get this forensic entomologist who's an expert in insects, and they'll come along. Mainly they look at the maggots and the, you know, time since death and that kind of thing. But this character started coming to me, this gothabilly forensic entomologist, Vanessa Marwood. She just came alive in my head, and the ideas just started streaming out of me. So I had to write them down. Yeah, and it's lovely to be able to combine the darkness with the more beautiful. It's that dark beauty kind of element to it. So that's how the idea came about.
And is it true that you were growing maggots yourself?
Yes, my daughter was disgusted by this. So thing is, well, I interviewed a forensic entomologist, one of the leading forensic entomologists in the country anyway, for the book. And she said to me, the best way to really understand it is to grow your own maggots. And I wasn't seriously thinking about it, but then it was summer and we'd let the rubbish pile up a little bit. And I saw, I saw a few maggots. So I just took them out. I took them out carefully and put them in like an aerated box to grow them and see what happened. But I feel really bad about this. So my daughter was horrified about it. I thought it was the most disgusting thing. But so I put them outside. It was, you know, decent weather, but then it rained and they got, so they didn't last. So yes, that wasn't a very successful experience. And my forensic entomologist expert who helped me with the books wasn't very impressed by the scientific kind of background that I used. Yeah, so she wasn't impressed by that. But, you know, I tried.
So
the whole life cycle and stuff, but I just didn't get to see it because I killed them by accident. Yeah.
When you were talking to your forensic entomologist, what process in the story does that come? Do you do the research beforehand? Do you do it during, or do you do it after, or a little bit all the way through?
So I did, just to get the plot down, I did lots of the research online because I feel that the plot comes first because it's fiction. And and I think it's really important to get the facts right as much as you can. But in my view, a good story is about plot, and you need to drive the plot forward. So I did that to make sure that I was happy with the story. And then once I'd done the first draft, I sat down and spoke to a forensic entomologist. I just emailed Amaret, and she was wonderful. And she was able to tell me all the places I got it wrong, literally all the places I got it wrong. And we worked together. And she's very cool. She understood that it was more me saying, could this happen? Doesn't mean, you know, it's like, you know, 1 in a million shot, could it happen? It's like, yes, in theory it could. So, you know, okay, great, I'll put it in. So yeah, that was really, I found I would advise that people do that, kind of almost getting the plot down and do it how you want to do it, and then come back and make sure you get some of the facts right. So I really enjoyed that, and that inspired me even more and made me come up with even more ideas. So it was really, really useful.
That's superb. Now, is this the entomologist thing? Is that the strangest research you've done for any of your books, or have? Because we'll bring up the backlist here. You've got the other series here as well, and got some standalones too. I mean, do all of your books take you to dark and strange places in terms of research?
Yeah, I think a lot of my other books, so a lot of those there are the psychological suspense books, whereas the Vanessa Marwood is much more crime thriller, much more steeped in forensics and things like that. My previous books, and much more about the emotions, the emotional side. So I guess research-wise is the research I did was digging deep into my emotions. So really
Right.
taking account and understanding what's happening in my mind when, like, with grief or infertility. But I definitely think the Vanessa Marwood stuff is the strangest research that I've had to do. I've definitely used it as a chance research generally for my books to go to lots of different places, but this has to be the strangest type of research.
And what's the reaction from readers to the sort of the gross parts of the books? Do they revel in it? Do they enjoy it, or are you getting kind of people saying, "I icked up in my mouth because of your book"?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. It's been really interesting, and I'm always really honest about because when with the book, it got a fantastic response from publishers.
Mm.
It went to preempt, and lots of different publishers wanted it. But it's interesting because it's doing well, but some readers I think find it too icky if it's the insects. Whereas I find the people like me and a lot of my friends who love that darker kind of side of things and the more icky side, maybe almost like horror element,
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah,
loving
yeah.
it. So it's been really interesting learning experience for me, because some people, they'll just look at insects and go no, and my publishers knew that they knew that could be
Yeah.
a risk, but they were hoping on it. So this is why I've always said I think it's almost more horror. Sometimes it has got those very dark horror, and you have to be up for that. But also lots of people I know who think they wouldn't want to read about insects are loving it. So, it's just giving it a chance and giving it a read. And just
Absolutely.
because you're a bit icked out by insects, it's not going to be, it doesn't really, it's not about that. It's about the more fascinating element of insects.
Absolutely. Laura
Brilliant.
comments says, facts are so incredibly important to me. When authors get it wrong, it really bugs me. Oh, very good, Laura. I see what
Love
you
it.
did there. Thank you. Yeah, there's a balance to be had, isn't it? I was at a Comic-Con over the weekend, and I was talking to a guy, and I was dressed up. I was dressed up in a Home Guard uniform because it was a steampunk thing, and other people were dressed up. And this was a Home Guard uniform ordered off Amazon. It was just off the peg kind of thing. And he said, "Oh, I don't want to tell you about all the errors with your uniform." And he said, "The buttons, the blah blah." I said, "Mate, I got it online. I'm just here for the
Yeah.
dressing up." I said, "But for the book, for my books, the historical detail is all important." I remember when I worked for Headline, we used to sell what they used to call saga novels, clogs and chores, where they were sort of generally romance stories set usually in a very specific town at a very specific time, the 20s or 30s or whatever. And I got all the free samples as a rep. I would give them to a friend of mine, Dorian, and she circulated them around her friends, and they loved them. Authors like Harry Bowling and people like that. And I said to her, "What is it about these books that you love?" And she said, "It's the little things. It's the things like knowing that bus stopped at Clapham Junction and we used to get that bus. So it's that little day-to-day minutia that makes all the difference for readers." So yeah, if you can get that, and particularly with bugs and insects, because it's a fascinating world to me. And I remember Lambs, when you're talking about that crossover between horror and psychological thrillers, I think that novel changed a lot. We had the Death's Head moth and everything, and there was and all of that stuff is absolutely fascinating. So if you feel the author has got a grip on it, then you just trust them and you go with it. And I think it's so that grounding of research
Yeah.
is all important, isn't it?
And I really agree about facts. I think, for me, the plot is essential, but that's why I went to a forensic entomologist. Like, I could not have written this book without going to an expert, because she
Absolutely,
also
yeah.
passed it. It was reviewed in Entomology Today and things like that. She passed it around, so for
Right.
her it was important as well. So yeah, as much as it bugged me that sometimes she was saying things like this, you can't include this. But yeah, it's like being able to. It is a fine line. You're walking a fine line as an author between entertaining people, but also making sure you don't get things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's.
Laura Jack says, "I've read Venom and it's brilliant. I'll never look at a spider in the." I mean, spiders are a whole different level of phobia as well. Insects are one thing, but spiders, people will just won't even go near. Even if you put one on the cover, they're just not
And I
going to go
must
anywhere near them.
disclose that is my aunt. That's my aunt. She's my dedicated fan. Hi, Laura. So
Hello,
yeah.
Auntie Laura.
Yeah, she reads all my books. So, yeah.
Brilliant. It was good to have a support group, which segues to the next phase of our conversation: support from fellow authors. Now, you run a Facebook group called the Savvy Authors Snug, which is known generally just as the Savvies. It's a club that that I think I applied 3 times before you let me in, because I still worked in publishing at the time.
Not allowed.
So it was
Yeah.
one of these things like, no, we're not letting you in, because it is very much a safe space for authors to ask those questions that they really can't ask anyone else. So can you tell us about Savvies and how it all started?
Yeah, it started. So I went to a few parties. Oh God, this was back in the day when there were more parties in publishing. I feel like 5 or 6 years ago. Everyone's too skint now. But I went to a few parties, like an agent party and a publisher party, and they were all in the same couple of days. And over a few glasses of wine, I was talking to fellow authors, and we were all sort of saying there's loads of stuff out there for aspiring authors
Yes.
and self-published authors at the time as well, but there wasn't much out there for published authors or sort of established self-published authors who've had a few books out to talk about the kind of issues that are very distinct to the published author experience, because people think once you get published the angst stops, but it doesn't.
No.
It's a roller coaster. Oh God, no.
We've
It's a
only
roller
just
coaster.
begun.
I know, exactly. God. So yeah, it's kind of the next day I was like, I said to them, I think I'm just going to I was a bit drunk, I'm going to set up a Facebook group, and I just thought it would just be like the 4 of us who were chatting would join. So I set it up the next day with a bit of a hangover, and it just grew literally day by day, because obviously it's that, and this kind of applies to books as well, it's that gap in the market that there wasn't something like that out there. So yeah, and I've been really careful. So it's very specifically for published authors or authors who it's like been announced in the bookseller, they've got a deal, coming down the line. So, and no publishing staff allowed. So what that means is that you can talk quite openly about things. And I'm very careful about who I let in. I only let in about, I've got a figure, I did figure it out at some point, about half the people who apply, because I get so many people applying. And I'm very careful about who I let in, and I think that reflects in the kind of quality of the conversation. And it's lovely when people apply and they're not published, but then I say, sorry, you can't come in. But then 6 months later, they're like, I got a deal. So I'm like, yeah, come in. So yeah, it's just a really lovely place where we can all have a nice chat and moan a lot. Well, there's a lot of moaning because that's life. People prefer to have a moan, don't they? But I really try and celebrate the good stuff as well. And it's just really nice to get that support from fellow authors, because it's a very unique experience and a solitary experience as well. So that was set up 5 years ago, and I love it. I use it. It's totally selfish. I use it as well. So yeah,
Absolutely. And you let, like I say, you wouldn't let me in initially, but my one was not I've got a deal. It was I've been made redundant, let me in.
I know. There's got to be some kind of a benefit to it. Yeah, I was gutted actually. So when I saw your name at first, I was like, oh, I really want to let him in, but no, I didn't. So I think I messaged you. I did a special message.
You did. I remember you gave me
Yeah.
you sent a very, very lovely note saying, look, this is why. Okay, so that was lovely.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. But I was just scrolling through, because I check it many times a day, and just recent topics just on things like royalty statements, which I like. Trying to fathom royalty statements, you need like a Rosetta Stone or something. Little things like tips for using Microsoft Word. My tip is don't. And then that old chestnut, can I quote from pop songs, to the lyrics of pop songs, to which the answer is always no. Although I say that as someone who's managed to get some Beatles lyrics into my previous book completely free of charge, because they were nursery rhymes first. So
Okay, little tip there.
Yeah, but it's there are evergreen topics that come up, but again, these things are constantly changing and constantly shifting. And I mean, what changes have you seen in those 5 years? What are we talking about more now that we weren't then?
I think, well, it's tougher. I think there was a nice boom in the mid-teens, like the 2015, 16.
Yeah.
I had some books that did really well then, and a lot of authors, it was kind of like riding the wave of the Kindle deals and Kindle getting very popular. So there's definitely a sense of, for established or mid-list authors and the people who've had quite a few books out, where before the royalties were allowing you to almost do it full time. It's not so easy now as it was. Deals aren't coming as quickly for a lot of authors. Like, surprisingly, some authors who are fantastic, seem to be very successful and not getting new deals with their publishers.
Yes.
And dare I say it, the big one is AI as well. That's a big one that's coming up as well. So there's really, those are the two main things, and in a way they're connected because of that fear of things being taken away. So yeah, there's some really, that they definitely, that's the change for me, is the stability is not there. Because I always said it's a myth, because people say you can't give up your day job to be a writer, but I always said you can, and you can earn a really good amount of money through writing. But I think it's a lot harder now. It's a lot harder than what it was. So I don't say that as much anymore. I say get a part-time job at least.
No, absolutely. I started working in publishing. You'd hear authors say, yeah, once you've got about 5 books out, the royalties from that will sort of pay the mortgage, pay the bills, kind of thing. And that's, you don't even get close now. It doesn't even sort of touch the size. But it is tougher and tougher. And the AI thing has just been it's interesting seeing the sort of spectrum of there are some people fervently anti AI, and there are some people who are kind of, okay, look, it's here to stay. What can we do with it? I mean, it is a great unknown at the moment, because no one really knows where it's going to land. I mean, for me, the solution I think is that we already have ALCS, which is like a pot for rights. Why not get the tech companies to put into that pot? The damage has already been done, but they could, contribute to that, and we could all get a chunk of change from that.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
it's
and I do think I sort of do describe myself as AI curious. I'm intrigued by it. When it first started happening, I was like, oh, this is really exciting. But now I'm seeing why authors are more fearful about it. But what I'm trying to do is I try not to contribute to the sort of the fear, and I try and help authors a little bit to handle it mentally, like mental health wise, because it is really affecting a lot of authors, the fear of the competition from AI and what it's going to be doing. And I try and sort of encourage authors to try not to give in to that fear and those negative emotions around AI, and just sort of think about things a bit. That's how I'm trying to handle it. I always try and be really positive, and like, oh, okay, let's look into it. Let's see how we can, I'm sure it won't be bad. So, I'm always trying to do that in the group as well, try and offer a bit more of a less panicky voice.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my take on it is, it feels to me very similar to what we went through with CGI in the 90s and films. I'd sort of model maker friends who were like, oh, that's it, my career is over. And what they discovered was that a lot of CGI was rubbish, and it was rushed and badly done. And now the two things live side by side. You have model makers where they're using the CGI to do the backgrounds or to cut out the wires or whatever, and these things work hand. And likewise, we've had drum machines since the late 70s, early 80s, but we still hire drummers, because what we yearn as consumers of entertainment is a human connection. And I think, particularly with authors, we get inside the heads of characters. We love the voices of our favorite authors. That is what we're looking for, that voice, and my advice to authors is ignore all the noise, concentrate on developing your own voice, because that's something that we make a connection to. Yes, an AI can knock out a novel in minutes or hours or whatever. That is grammatically perfect, but it doesn't have that voice. It doesn't have the voice that we appreciate.
It's that human. It's the human voice that's so unique, and that sort of ties into why you can't predict how well things are going to go, because it's in terms of books, because there's a certain something that AI can't do, that an author can't plan to do, that will suddenly make something connect. And I think that is just at a human level that you can't explain. It's making me sound, sounds really spiritual, but it's kind of, you cannot predict it, and AI can't do that, I don't think. So, it's that very human side of things, and unpredictable humanity, unpredictable nature of humans, and how we feel and what we love.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. That's the thing that gives me hope. Is
Yeah.
we're constantly surprising ourselves and surprising our readers, and yeah, and yeah, that's what keeps me helps me sleep at night.
We're just the optimist. I just try so hard. I just try not
Yeah,
to be, yeah, just try
yeah,
like, it'll be fine as I'm walking back and forth. It's like, it'll all be
yeah.
fine. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to bring up a quote from Laura here. She says, "Why can't you use a line or two from a pop song? Surely it comes under fair use." Now, Laura, I did a whole episode of this on the bestseller experiment. We had a couple of entertainment lawyers on, UK entertainment lawyers on. I'll put a link in the show notes so people listening back to the podcast can check it out. Just don't do it. Don't do it. It used to be in the 80s that record labels were kind of a bit casual about this, which is why if you go back and look at Stephen King novels, they're full of lyrics. And Robert Rankin had a load of lyrics in his books as well. And they had a very laissez-faire attitude to it. But as soon as CD sales dropped and their main source of income died, they got very litigious about this stuff. And UK, we don't really have the concept of fair use in the same way they do in the US. And it could be seen as passing off. So don't do it. It would just, if you're caught, print runs get pulped, all sorts of legal shenanigans. It gets very, very difficult. They're very, very strict about it. So yeah.
And when you
Boy
put
there
it in a
says,
book, your publisher would just be like, get it out.
yeah, they won't. They
Yeah,
won't.
they're just
Yeah,
not.
they won't allow it. They
No.
won't allow it. Like I say, I discovered so things like Golden Slumbers in Abbey Road is based on a nursery rhyme, and it's Golden Slumbers. Fill your eyes, and the words of the original nursery rhyme were slightly different as well. And I know that when we did the audio book, Candida, who did the narration for it, couldn't use the same melody as McCartney's melody because that's copyrighted too. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's very, very, very risky, very risky. But yeah, so don't do it. Cool. Let's now just generally putting AI aside, what's your advice for a mid-career author asking for a friend? Based on everything you've encountered in Savvies.
Do you know what? I mean, I'm going to say something that's really obvious, but I'm going to try and explain why it's not so obvious. So just keep writing. And I think there's a misconception that the more books you write, the more of a backlist you build and fan base you build. I don't mean it in that term. I mean, keep writing because it goes back to the unpredictability. All it takes is one book to just take off. So I have a pretty big backlist, 10 plus novels out. And even with all those novels out, well, I still get royalties, but they're not huge. But when one of my books takes off, so I've had 3 books that have done really well, really well. That is unpredictable, and that's where suddenly you get a glimpse of what can be, kind of thing. So, but that doesn't always follow through to the next book. So it's really bizarre. So you don't always pick up all these readers that that come for your next book. So there's this belief that they do follow you through, and I have my core wonderful readers, but that it's unpredictable. It goes up and down. So the reason why I say is carry on writing and carry on coming up with ideas is because you just don't know which book's going to do it. And I've spoken to lots of authors and who've suddenly had these huge successes. Like there's a few in the Savvy group that have been like Reese Witherspoon's book club, Richard and Judy, and they were on a real slump. They wrote another book. They were just about to give up, and suddenly they can't even explain it. It just takes off. And I kind of had that with My Sister's Secret, which was my second novel, and I was on maternity leave. I don't think it's on that list there, but yeah, I was on maternity leave. No, there's too many to fit on a screen. That's so many books, and I was exhausted, but I had to write this book, and I thought there's no way this is going to do well because I am passionate about the story, but I'm just tired, so I'm not writing it to the same level. And it did really well, and it's like, and then a book where I thought, oh, this idea is really strong. I think this got a chance. Doesn't do as well as that, so it's completely unpredictable, and the only way that you get those chances is by continuing to come out of ideas and write books and experiment. So that I would definitely say keep going on and keep writing. And yeah, I think that's the only thing you can do. You can just keep writing and join up with your author friends and take solace and with your other mid-list authors. There's a lot of us around, and but having said that, from the more sort of spiritual element, there's also you can the reason why I call the Savvy Writer Snug on Facebook, the reason why I call that is that there are ways to be savvy, just seeing what you're doing as a business as well, and just being really careful about how you market things, what publisher you decide to go for. If you're self-publishing, really doing all your research and pivoting when things don't go right. So I think there are also more strategic things you can do as well, but it's harder nowadays. I think back a few years ago, you could make those pivots and you could sort of say something would come of it, but now it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah, what I'm seeing more and more, and this, I mean, I've done this myself, which is on Savvy's. I'm seeing more and more authors getting the rights back to some of their earlier books and self-publishing them and going out there. And while it isn't as easy as it might have been, say, 10 years ago, because I do think a lot of those early authors who had huge success with KDP, yeah, they're very good writers, but they were in the right place at the right time. Amazon put wind in themselves because Amazon had to make it work as well. Whereas now it's incredibly crowded, very, very difficult to break out. But I think there's an element of, well, if my publisher's not going to do anything with these books, I'll do something with them. And we're seeing more and more people shifting over to sort of putting their indie stuff, their early stuff, as selling it independently.
That's what I'm doing. I've been doing as well. I've been trying to do that. So yeah.
And what's your experience of that been like?
So I know people who've done it really well, but so I got the rights back to my early novels from HarperCollins. They did fight in a lovely way. They fought me for them. So they were really lovely about it. They're like, please let us try. So I did let them try, but I still didn't feel like the money that was being made every month was worth it. So I've got the rights back, and I've got the rights back from the American rights as well. So I was going to self-publish and do all of that, but I realized that I just found it quite exhausting because I've got a part-time job as well and a child, and found it quite exhausting, and money-wise, it was taking up a lot of money. So I think before anyone does that, they have to be really sure that they've got the time and the money to do it, because you are still, if you want to rebrand, you want to get a new cover. I mean, you can design your own cover if you're decent at doing that kind of thing, but you've got to be careful. So there's so much involved in self-publishing. So that's what I would say to anyone who's looking to do that, is to really make sure you've got the time and money.
Yeah, I think a lot of the mid-list authors, where they've got some of their backlist and they're putting it out next to their, traditionally published stuff, you're competing with yourself. So your cover has to be as good as the covers that you have with your, trade publisher or whatever. And it's not easy, and you've got to keep on top of it. And you may want to get into Facebook ads and Amazon ads and that kind of thing. And they can be, as I've discovered, a complete money pit. So yeah, it's tricky. But I do think this. I think we're going to see more and more authors doing this, because certainly when I was at Orion, at Hachette, they editors were kind of instructed, keep hold of these books, because a publisher makes money with a library, that long tail of sales. As you were saying earlier, you never know when one of these might suddenly take off. Some backlist book gets a movie deal with Timothy Chalamet in the lead or whatever. Boom, it's essentially free money. So they do like to hang on to those rights. So getting them back can be really, really tricky, and it can involve
something else that's worth thinking about, and something that my agent and I are talking about, is you get the rights back. So I've got lots of different books published by different publishers, and the branding's not consistent. So getting those rights back. So if I can't do it myself, then go into one publisher and they will take it on, my psychological suspense stuff, like my earlier stuff, but with a new idea as well. So and then they have it all. They have the whole backlist, and they're really pushing it all together. So that's another option. That's a third way that I'm exploring at the moment. So I mean, it's been no harm getting the rights back, because I haven't had to pay for them. I just got the rights back, and they weren't making loads of money either. So now royalties wise. So yeah, that's another option to look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get on to our regular questions that I ask each of our guests, and I'll start with, what small thing has made a big difference to your creative process?
Oh, having a dog in my office. No, sorry, just trying to see it. Having a dog assistant. No, a small thing. It is walks. I know that sounds really going out for walks. When I get stuck on something or trying to come up with ideas, and that's when my dog assistant is snoring at the moment, comes in. So that is a small thing for me, because if I'm sat there, I'm like, I cannot figure out this plot hole. If I go out into nature, walk around, it untangles. So I'd always recommend that to anyone going out for walks. It really helps.
Absolutely, 100%. What's the thing that makes you think you're ready to start writing on a project?
It's when I cannot stop writing it and thinking about it in the evenings. So now that I'm busy, well, I've got a child and I'm just exhausted. I'm older and I just get so tired in the evenings. Back in the day, in my early days of writing, I would write into the evenings, without thinking about it. But now I'm just tired at the end of the day. So I'm like, no, stop. But if I carry on writing into the evening until late at night, I know that the idea's got legs and I'm excited about it. That's definitely something that, I know that.
And how do you know when you're done?
When it comes to like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I decide to when I decide to clean the house instead of writing, I know that I need to take a break, because that's really unusual for me to want to tidy and clean the house, as my husband will agree. So yeah, that's no, but it's also regards to perfecting stuff. I could perfect a book for 10 years. I could keep looking at it. So there comes deadlines really help with that. So, but yeah, that for me, I know when it's time to stop, when I'm coming up with an excuse not to write, really.
Excellent. How do you remember that idea that you have at 3 a.m?
Oh, I don't have a notepad by my bed. What I worry about is I do remember stuff and then I forget it. But I do wake up with ideas in my head. So that's the only way, is I sort of think about, when I wake up, I think about it, but I don't have a notepad by my bed. I don't tend to dream as many ideas or think of ideas in the middle of the night. So
You just keep it up there in your noggin until the morning?
Yeah, I just wake up. I just seem to remember it. I don't know how. Or maybe that's the problem. Maybe I don't remember as many as what I should, because I don't write it down. And now you're making me think I've got to go and get a notepad, and I really, really need to write all these ideas down.
What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your writing career?
I think not being consistent and maybe pivoting too much sometimes. So with just and because I'm savvy, I'm very aware of being careful with what publishers I'm with. And I've learned that publishers are pretty much the same. A lot of publishers are the same. As in they're great. A lot of publishers are great. And at the end of the day, you're the one who's in control. So they are helping you in a way. They're almost like a freelancer for you. So staying with publishers, I think it's important to have that consistency. So I probably have, when I've been offered opportunities, jumped around a little bit too much. So, so I think that's something. I wouldn't say it's the biggest mistake I've made, but just being a bit more consistent.
No, I've seen that happen actually. A lot of authors I've seen jump publishers because the grass is always greener, and they've gone there and it's exactly the same. They're doing the same things, so it's just very often our problems with our publishers are industry wide and there's nothing you can do about it, really. So
and I realized when I've tried indie publishing in the past, or other projects I've worked on, that actually publishers do a lot. They do a lot. Oh my God. Because when you try and self-publish, you realize, geez, the amount of things that they do, and they're paying you. I know they're taking commission. I know they're taking a percentage, and they're a really big percentage actually. But they're still really big. But it's it's like, yeah, it's interesting. You get a different perspective on things.
Absolutely. What's the best happy accident of your writing career?
Do you know what? I think it is getting drunk and talking about and talking about all my issues at those parties, and just confiding in authors about any issues that I had, and we all realised that everyone else had the same issues, because a lot of the time people don't talk about it. So yeah, and then Savvy Writers Snug came blossomed out of that. So yeah, I think that is, I'd say that really.
Absolutely brilliant. It's I mean, I've got friendships out of that group, people I would never have met
Yeah.
otherwise. So I think you'll find everyone in that group has got something brilliant out of it. Yeah, it's a very good happy accident. You should get drunk more often.
Yes, I'm planning to.
Is there a character or a story swirling around in your mind that you want to write, but you're not ready to write it yet?
Yeah, I think yes, I think I do like quite literary slow ideas, like romances. So like almost like a Wuthering Heights, Brooding Man, but not in the commercial romantic way. So my savvy commercial side is telling me it won't work, and it won't sell, and it won't do well. And I really am into there's always romances in my book anyway, and I'm writing a very commercial romance at the moment. But yeah, it's the more literary, quiet, slow burn romance. And I just know that writing it, I probably would enjoy it, but I don't know if anything would come of it. And I haven't got time. I haven't got time to write something that,
This is the of every
weird,
author though,
isn't it?
because I'm going through a similar thing. There's a book I want to write, and there's a part of me thinking it doesn't commercial at all. I don't think, but as you were saying earlier, that could be the
Yes.
one.
I know.
That
I
could
know.
be the
That's so
one that
true, isn't it?
rockets, and
Yeah.
you just don't know. If you could zip forward
Yeah.
18 months and just go, oh, okay, it was a dud. Fair enough. That's fine.
Yeah.
I won't bother. I mean, it's the William Goldman thing, isn't it? Nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
That could be the one that suddenly, and this is the stuff that drives us insane, isn't it? The fact that we
Yeah.
don't
It is.
know what's going to be a hit and what's not going to be a hit, because it is
That is the
those ones you
worst
think,
part about this.
yeah,
Because you can't, I think, yes, in life there are more predictable things, but you just don't know. So actually, yeah, me saying that, who knows? So mate, I've got to write about this random guy romance kind of, I don't know. Got this.
I'm sorry, I'm messing with your mind there. I'm messing with you. You
I
made your mind up,
know.
and then there's me messing with your mind there. We're going to move on to the what's bringing you joy in a moment, folks. If you've got any questions for Tracy, just pop them in the comments, and we'll get you some answers. So, yes, Tracy, what's bringing you joy at the moment? This can be books, movies, TV shows, music, games, whatever makes you happy when you're not writing.
So I am a gamer. I love gaming. I actually rediscovered it over lockdown because I got a Nintendo Switch so that I could do the workout things, but it just made me sit on my butt all day instead. I didn't do any working out because I discovered games. So yeah, that was completely silly of me. But yeah, I love games. I've been playing a game called Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is set in medieval times. So it's notoriously a really tough game. It's lots of fighting, and I love open world. I love exploring worlds in games and having little quests and stuff. And people are always really shocked when I tell them that I'm into gaming. But it's my writing used to be my hobby, but now it's my job. Still, passionate job. But so it's kind of the gaming side has become the hobby side. So I love that, and that's what I'll do to relax. If I've got time, I'll sit down and do a bit of a gaming session. I'll be treating myself. If I get this book that I'm currently writing in by deadline, I think I'm going to get myself the next Assassin's Creed. So yeah, really, that's getting some really great reviews. So I love kind of doing a bit of sort of cheeky killing, which is Assassin's Creed's like sneaky kills. Yes, Gamers Unite. I can see comments
Gamers
there.
Unite, yes,
Yeah,
excellent.
and I think it's great for storytelling because the stories in games, some of them are rubbish, but the storytelling in gaming is amazing, and I think that can really help. With that side of things.
I've avoided gaming because I just have this feeling that if I get into it, I won't do anything else.
Yeah.
I will just get completely lost in the world. So
But you're the sort of person I can imagine would love gaming because I don't know, like with
yeah,
all the cons and everything you go to.
I know, but I just couldn't. I mean, you've got Switch, haven't you, Em? And
Yeah.
you spend more time in there than in the real world. George, my son,
I'm yeah.
is nearly 23 now, but he was into Red Dead Redemption 2, and he learned about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's telling me about the horse, and he was
Yeah.
really, choked up about this horse. And but he also learned how to play poker. So it is yeah,
It is.
sure,
It can be a
educational. Yes.
time suck. It can be. So it's difficult. So you have to really control yourself, and it
Yeah.
does take time away potentially from writing in the evenings. If I've got that exciting idea. So, but it is such a good way to sort of help your mind. I think it's also really good for like brain activity as well. Like forget Sudoku or whatever it's called. Get
Oh
on
yeah.
your PS5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love that kind of thing.
Brilliant. What else is bringing you joy, Tracy?
I also I do love I love watching films actually. I love films and TV. And I just watched, oh God, I forgot the name of it. The one about the Pope. Is that
Conclave.
Conclave?
There we go.
Yes. So yeah, Conclave. So especially because of bless
Quite,
him, the Pope,
yeah, quite
the
topical.
Pope,
Yeah.
very topical. And I love watching topical things. So
Hmm.
when lockdown happened, I watched Contagion. So that really
Right.
scared me. So that was good. Oh no, when COVID was just happening. So, but yeah, Conclave, really good twist at the end. And actually, my family are kind of Roman Catholic, so my on both sides, my mum and dad's side, I've got that kind of Roman Catholic heritage. Not, I'm not. I was sort of went through the communion, and all that kind of thing when I was little, but not so much into it now. But I do find that the religion and current affairs really fascinating.
Hmm.
Um, yes, I've really enjoyed watching that in light of what's been happening. And I did I watched that sort of this weekend, and then yeah, so really bizarre. It sort of all happened at the same time. And I generally love current affairs. I love you know listening to different podcasts, watching the news, getting a sort of understanding of what's. I love politics. Really interested. I'm always listening to a political podcast as well as a writing podcast. So yeah, it's that those kinds of things that
But does that ever sort of make it into your writing, or is that just you keep the two separate, or?
I do. I have tried, and I did come up with a bit of a political idea, but my agent, I love her, but she was like, people really don't want to read about that. But I still would have done it. I still would have done it, but it did kind of put me off a little bit. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
I'm learning something here that I turn ideas down in my head because I don't think they'll be commercial enough. I need to stop doing that. Yeah, I do need to stop doing that. But yeah, I have kind of thought about it before, and I do really love politics. Really
Mm.
intrigued by it all. So maybe that'll be another idea. Maybe a romance. The romance you can be, the PM that's been banished for doing something. Anyway, um,
You're seeing
yeah,
ideas evolve live here, folks, live on
yeah,
the
it's
show.
coming. It's coming. Yeah. But yeah,
And
I also
music and books. Music and books. What's
so I
bringing you
love.
joy there?
I do like Lana Del Rey. I love that. I love her kind of moody, um, depressing kind of sound. I seem to like female vocalists who sound very depressed or very intense when they're singing. And I'm going to see her live in July with my
Oh,
daughter. So
brilliant.
every year we try and go. We saw Taylor Swift last year, Billie Eilish the year before. So I always try and take my daughter, or use it as
Wow.
an excuse, really. I say I'm taking my daughter, but I'm going to for myself as well. And actually, one of my characters in My Sister's Secret, one of the characters is based on Lana Del Rey, the way she looks and the way
Ah.
she acts. And that was a few years ago when Lana Del Rey was first starting out. So yeah, I love listening to music. I'm always listening to music on my walks and things like that. And books, I'll have to remember what the name of this is now. But yeah, I'm going through, but yeah, I'm going through a non-fiction phase. So Careless People. So that's all it's about. It's a woman, a New Zealand woman who worked at Facebook, and it's the inside story on Facebook. It's kind of terrifying, really, because it's everything you think it will be, which is horrible, basically greedy, childish. So I'm finding that quite interesting, and I'm also reading Supremacy by so Supremacy, it's about how ChatGPT and so on came about, so the lead up to it and how AI kind of evolved over the past few years. And that involves people like Facebook and Google and Microsoft, all these massive conglomerates, that are just desperate to play a part in this new technology. And it's a really fascinating read. And I tend to like reading those kind of non-fiction books because I'm so immersed in the fiction world that sometimes I like to have a little break and read some non-fiction. And weirdly, on holiday, I thought I was going to be reading like a beach read or something, but I ended up reading these really intense corporate and non-fiction books.
Brilliant. I'll quickly run through what's giving me joy this month. Now, we were talking about the storytelling in gaming.
Yes.
I mean, we got The Last of Us. Now, I had a long Easter weekend. I was working over the Easter weekend. So last night I thought I'd treat myself to episode 2 of the new season. It's only episode 2. What could possibly go wrong? Oh my God, the trauma. I mean, I'm not going to give spoilers or anything, but that was the sort of thing you'd expect in a season finale. It was just absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. The other thing that's given me joy, now I haven't seen it yet, but just the sweet anticipation of Andor Series 2. It's just bringing my step. I just can't wait to see this. This is, for my money, the best Star Wars since The Empire Strikes Back. I'm very, very excited, and sort of in anticipation of that, one of the books I've been reading is by Tony Gilroy's dad, Frank D. Gilroy, who is the father of Tony Gilroy. He was a Pulitzer prize-winning playwright, and this is his sort of memoir, Writing for Love and/or Money. Mind blown. And/or Money. And it starts in 1939 when he's a kid, goes to war, ends in 1960. He has encounters with people like Jimmy Cagney, which is great. Walt, definitely not the Tom Hanks version. But basically reading this, even through the 50s and 60s, those constants of being a writer, money worries, rejection, perseverance, they're all still there. So it was kind of reassuring that even somebody who won a Pulitzer Prize and plays on Broadway and wrote movies and TV shows and everything had exactly the same worries that I'm going through as well. And every writer I know is going through. Highly recommend that. In terms of music, I love Lana Del Rey. I've got her new single as well, which is just terrific. But there's a song by Samantha Fish, who's this fantastic guitarist, called Sweet Southern Sounds. It starts as this soulful blues, and the solo speeds up in tempo until by the end she's thrashing away. And now a lot of bands in the 70s used to do this by mistake. You listen to some old records and the tempo picks up by the end. She's doing it deliberately. And I think the lesson for writers here is break the rules, but do it with intent. Now, we were mentioning Comic-Cons earlier. In the last month, I've been to Luton, Maidenhead over the Easter weekend. I was in the Fort Amherst Caves in Chatham. I've sold lots of books, met loads of new readers, so I'm going to be doing a lot more. So here are some dates for your diary. Saturday, 26th of April, I'm going to be in Banbury. Sunday, 27th of April, I'm going to be in Southampton. Sunday, 4th of May, I'm going to be in Maidstone. Sunday, 11th of May, I'm going to be in Reading. 18th of May, Sunday 18th of May, going to be in Tunbridge. Then end of May, 23rd to the 25th, the big one, the MCM Comic Con in London. I'm going to be there all weekend. That's going to be in. And then Sunday 31st, I'm going to be in Hatfield. In between all that, in the middle of all that, on Saturday, going to be appearing at the Beyond the Book Festival in Brighton, which has a fantastic lineup, including Dorothy Coomson, Ellie Griffiths, Ruth Ware, and there's little old me in the bottom left-hand corner there. I'll be moderating a panel discussing world building, Rise of the World Builders, with Natasha Pulley, Adam Simcox, and Zuleika Afzal. That's going to be really, really good day out for everyone. So get your tickets. I'm going to put links in the show notes if you're listening back to this as well. Also, the Green Room, twice a month, I run live sessions on Zoom where you can ask me questions about the craft of writing, the work in progress, the business of publishing. Sessions are fun and informal and chatty. This Thursday, we've got one of our 200-word workshops where members send me in 200 words of their work in progress. I give it a critique, and it promises to be really, really good fun. We're doing on character introductions, so it's really, really good fun. I'll pop a link in the group. It's all on Ko-fi, so you can. It's £20 a month. You can stay for a month or however long you want. So do come along to that. There's no long-term commitment. Also, now the Corn Bride came out a couple of months ago. Thanks to everyone who's read it and reviewed it. Now I didn't have a launch party for it or any kind of launch event. So what I thought I was going to do, launch parties, you can't really discuss much of the plot. So I'm going to have a spoiler night. So on Tuesday, 13th of May, which is 2 months after publication, I'm going to have a spoiler night where you can join me. If you've got thoughts about the ending, the middle, the beginning, anything to do with the whole series, then join me on Tuesday, 13th of May, 8 p.m. British Summer Time, and I will answer all of your questions, including Witches of Woodville books. So do come to that. Sign up to my newsletter, check out my social media. Put that date in your diaries if you want to come along to that as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Creative Difference. Just in the show notes for this episode, so do check that. Mention of next month's special guest. So 12th of May, 8 p.m. We've got Sarah Pimbrough coming. Sarah is an award-winning New York Times, Sunday Times, internationally best-selling author and screenwriter, published in over 30 territories worldwide. Recent books include Behind Her Eyes, which was a smash hit, 13 Minutes, which she's developing herself with NBC, and A Death House that she's adapting for a film company, and her most recent book, Insomnia, which she adapted for herself and is now streaming on Paramount Plus. She's hilarious, she's wise, and she has a lovely dog called. Do please join us live as you have the opportunity to ask Sarah questions on the night and just before her big American tour. It's going to be lots and lots of fun. So that's Monday, 12th of May, 8 p.m. BST. So Tracy, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate it. Do we have any questions then from the listeners? Oh, okay. So one from SC Gowland. When writing crime fiction and coming up with gruesome plots, how do you boundary yourself, or are there certain topics you would never touch? Well, there's a good one.
That is a really good question, actually. I think I do struggle. I don't like to write about abuse. So yeah, I don't like to write about SA, as it's known. So I think I tend to steer away from that side of things. But generally everything else I kind of, I'm pretty open to writing about, and I don't feel an obligation to be overly careful, because I feel that people should know when they're diving into dark books that there's going to be darkness in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not many topics that I would keep away from, just apart from on that, really.
Where do you stand on the issue of trigger warnings?
I don't think they're needed, because I think that when you are, it depends on the genre, actually. So if you're expecting something to be dark, so if it's like crime or really dark fiction, dark psychological suspense, you've got to prepare yourself that something might come up.
Yeah,
it is tough, I guess. Like if you go watch a film and so a topic that's you're really sensitive to comes up, it can be really tough. But I think that you have to be aware going in that might happen. So it's a fine line between how many trigger warnings you put in. But I do think if you've got more of a soft, like a lighter book, maybe. But yeah, I think we've survived without them for long enough to be okay without them.
I think, like you say, I think it's a kind of horses for courses thing. I think if it's like children's fiction or whatever, maybe, but it's I think when you see a cover that has, these are crime covers, and we're going to be dealing with murder and death and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a contract there between the reader and the author that bad things are going to happen, that terror and anything goes kind of thing. So I think that's whereas if you're writing maybe a fluffy romance and there is something deeply traumatic in the middle of it that's unexpected, then maybe you need to rethink your story, frankly. It's often a tonal question, isn't it? But yeah, that's but yeah, like I said, we have them for movies and stuff, but I think movies are a much more visceral thing. Anyone can turn on a TV show or whatever and see a horror movie or whatever. So I think with books, it's like I say, that I think that contract between reader and author is much more open and much more clear. I think. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Cool. A question here from Laura: do you think you've inspired your daughter to write, and has she read any of your books?
Yeah, she is into she wants to be an actress, so she would like to star. So I have had interest. I've had the film rights, TV rights sold to a couple of books. So yeah, she's always like, I need to be an actress in one of them. But she does love writing as well. So yeah, I think so. She hasn't read any of my books because they would not be appropriate for her. She probably had a sneaky look. I've read a couple of things from the prologue of some books to give her an insight into how I start my books. But when she's older, I say she can read them when she's older. She knows all about them, to be honest. So she does. I tell her, about stuff. But yeah, I think I have. Hopefully, I have inspired her to be creative. So I think any, writing, being an actress, anything like that, she's been able to see that just you can achieve something. A lot of people say, oh, don't be a writer or don't be an actress. It's impossible. It's really hard. Do something more sensible. She's been able to see that actually you can do that. So I think that's what's great for us writers, to be able to show our kids that.
Well, I've tried to put both of my kids off, and but I mean, you're writing, aren't you? And George, he's graduated now, so we have a fully qualified unemployed actor in the house, but he's writing his own stuff as well. So it's like, I've tried to put you off, but you wouldn't listen, would you? No. Okay, right, we'll all be poor then.
It's in the blood.
Briefly mentioned, we'll wrap things up now, but you briefly mentioned you're working on something new at the moment. How much can you tell us about that?
So, well, at the moment, I'm writing a quite commercial romance that that I'm really enjoying. It's really fun, and that we're going to be approaching publishers under a pseudonym, Wombat. So, and then psychological suspense. That idea that I had when I was away. I'm working on that as well. I will do another Vanessa Marwood, I think, but because it's so intense, the plotting and the research, I just need a little break. So I had 3 of these out within a year. So it's quite intense. So yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a break from that. But yeah, I'm playing at the moment and, sort of writing some drafts and messing about. And yeah, it's quite a nice phase.
Brilliant.
But yes, I can't tell you too much.
No, but the pseudonym thing, I mean, we're kind of out of time, but we could talk about that for a long time because, again, if you go out as Tracy Buchanan and you're writing, thrillers and with these dark themes, but then you go out with a romance, there's that reader expectation, that reader contract that we talked about that can throw people, can't it?
Yeah, I definitely will have to go under a pseudonym for this one. So yeah.
Right.
No, there's a whole so much to say about pen names as well. God, there's so much we could talk about, isn't there?
I know. You should start a book, a Facebook group. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy. I really, really appreciate your time. And folks, I'll put links and everything in the show notes so you can check out. I mean, the books are available from all good booksellers, and they are absolutely terrific. If you've enjoyed this podcast, things like ratings, reviews, likes, shares, these all help massively with those AI algorithms. But more importantly, if you could tell just one person about this podcast, that will make the biggest difference. Word of mouth is the best marketing there is. So until next time, happy writing, reading, and being different. And see you next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.
See you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.